Hey everybody, Steve Lucian here. So many of you know what's been going on with me physically. I've had a very rough, almost 6 months. Back in August, I was diving and I had a seizure underwater. I almost died. I want to tell you a little bit about what happened leading up to the seizure and what the aftermath has been and what my future possibly looks like. A long time ago, probably about 8.5, 9 months ago, I started feeling really sick. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I just felt very lethargic. I was having incredible pain, like headaches. My body hurt. I was not sleeping very good because of a project I was working on, and I was definitely killing myself getting this thing done. I had a deadline for a client of mine, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I stressed out about it for many months, knowing that I had a deadline to complete an application by, and I did complete that deadline, by the way, but it was not without a cost, my health. Basically, what happened was I ended up hurting my immune system, is what I was told by the doctors, most likely at least. I contracted the shingles virus. Now, normally shingles will show up as a patch on your side or different parts of your body. It's very painful, and it is caused by the chickenpox virus, which many of us have as children, and it lays dormant in our system. Now, I'm only 41 years old, kind of young to get shingles, but apparently it can happen, especially if your immune system is compromised, as mine was. So I contracted shingles, but I didn't know I did. I did have a few things happening with my skin that was slightly alarming, and I did go to my PCP, and they looked at me, and they put me on an antiviral to try to help. I had some sores on my head, on my face, and they were very painful. I had them in my sinuses. I had them in my mouth. So they put me on a medication that they said would help. I started taking this. Again, this is about maybe 8.5, almost 9 months ago. I did notice within a few days the sores were drying up and they were going away. Well, like a lot of people do, I stopped taking the medication too early. Probably the biggest mistake I could have made. Had I just kept on taking the medication, and I'll explain to you, for those that don't know what has happened in the last 8 months, you'll know in just a little bit. But because of this, I ended up having a relapse of this virus. I was on a dive trip to Gilboa Quarry, located in Ottawa, Ohio. I've done a ton of dives out there, and I was training for my cave certification to become a cave diver, and I was going to be doing full cave CCR. So I was going to become a full cave diver. I was going to be meeting with Dive Right and Justin Judd, a friend of mine. He was going to do my instruction about maybe a week and a half after the incident that I'm going to talk to you about. When I got to Ohio, I was very sick. I wasn't thinking straight for weeks and weeks before. I was making really strange, risky decisions. I'm talking about when I drove, I was wanting to drive too fast. Everything I did, I was just pushing the boundaries. I wasn't thinking straight. It definitely is not like me. I'm very calculated with my risks. And so while I was there, I started getting very sick. I noticed I was running a fever. I didn't have a thermometer, but apparently it was a high fever. I was taking Tylenol and ibuprofen just to stop the headaches. I was getting a very strange smell. It was like an electrical burning smell or burnt steak or a combination. Pretty pungent, but it's very odd because even if I plugged my nose, I could still smell it. It's like I was engulfed in this smell. I was passing out, so I thought. I remember eating breakfast one morning with a friend, and as I'm eating my eggs, next thing I know, I woke up and my face was in the eggs. I passed out. I was told by people, you better not dive. And I said, of course I won't. But again, I wasn't thinking straight. Listen, I know better. I've been doing this for many years, 12 years. I am a technical rebreather diver. I dive the Great Lakes. I do 200-foot wreck dives. I'm not a novice. I know what can happen. I almost died years before. If you haven't seen that video, please, it's up here somewhere, I think. You can click and see that video of me almost dying after I became a technical diver. I ended up going in the water the last day that I was there because I was there for 5 days sick. And I thought in my head, my convoluted mind, I'm not coming all the way out here and not training, because a week and a half or 2 weeks after that, I had to be in Florida for my cave training. So it made sense to me in that moment that I had to get in the water, and I had to run lines, and I had to practice, and I had to just get myself ready to go. That was the biggest mistake I could have made. I ended up getting in the water. This is all a blur to me. It's almost like I'm remembering someone else's memory, or like a story or a movie that I watched. It's very odd. But I remember vaguely suiting up and getting in the water. I ended up telling myself I'm going to do just a shallow dive. I didn't. Again, I knew better. This isn't my first rodeo, folks. I wasn't thinking straight. This is embarrassing. I vaguely remember going to the wall of this quarry, and it goes from shallow to very deep very quick. And I started going over the wall like I always used to do. I did hundreds and hundreds of decompression dives there at the deepest part of the quarry. It goes down about 138 feet. And that's where I found myself going down and descending. I remember I hit about 80 feet, and I started feeling really sick. Everything started spinning. I got that smell. And then I knew I was going to pass out. Little did I know, the day before I was having seizures. I ended up racing to the surface as fast as I could, knowing that I have to be careful. It was early on in the dive, so I wasn't really worried about decompression sickness. But I had to make sure that I didn't just shoot up. And I remember getting to the surface and just looking at the surface and seeing the sun beaming through the water. And I remember my face breaching the surface. And I inflated everything. And then I woke up. Probably, 10, 15 minutes later, I was in a cold sweat just floating in this 14-acre quarry by myself. Again, I knew better than this. I am solo certified, but this was dumb. I wish I could take it back. Thank God I didn't drown. Had I been face down, had I not had some wherewithal, this could have been bad. Anyway, I remember waking up, and I remember panicking, not knowing where I was at, why I was there. And then it dawned on me that I was diving. And I remember just getting myself to the nearest dock, and I got out of the water. And I threw my stuff onto my golf cart, and I raced myself back to my trailer. I have a piece of property there at the quarry that I stay at. And I just remember throwing my stuff in the car. I drove myself home to the Pittsburgh area. It's 4.5 hours, folks. And I don't know how often I had them. I think I had 3 or 4 possible seizures when I was driving. Again, it's kind of a blur, but I remember getting that nasty feeling, that smell. And I would just pull over. And I would just wake up in a cold sweat, in pain, confused. And I would just follow my directions, my phone. I finally got to a hospital that was about 15 minutes from my house. And I remember stumbling into and I fell. And I landed on a chair, I think, if I remember right. I just remember my chest was hurting. I hit something. And when they came over and they were asking me what was wrong, I told them my chest hurts, and they thought I had a heart attack. So they took me back. And they did x-rays, they did a EKG, and they found out my heart was fine. They scared me a little bit because they thought that they saw something, but it ended up not being anything.
Thank you, everyone who has prayed. As far as the spot that they found on my heart, when they did the CT scan, they're not concerned with it anymore. I'll probably do a follow-up visit with a doctor just to make sure, but they're not very concerned right now about that. They did find that I have a fever of about 104, and it looks like I have some form of viral or a bacterial infection, like a sinus infection, and it looks like that might be causing a lot of these issues that I'm having. So that's at least something there. So they have me on medication for that, and I've just been resting, and I'm getting a lot of IVs. My sodium is extremely low, so I've been admitted overnight now. We're looking at 3 times, but I really do appreciate everyone's prayers. Please continue to pray. I just want to get out of here. All right. I love everybody.
And they noticed that I was very congested. They noticed I was running a high fever. They noticed I was just in a lot of pain. I had a bad headache. So they did a CAT scan, and they found that there was inflammation, and they diagnosed me with a sinus infection. I didn't have a sinus infection, folks. They gave me medication for the pain. They gave me an antibiotic. They shouldn't have given me an antibiotic, and I'll explain in a minute. They sent me home. I was there for 5 days. On day 5, they sent me home. I was home not very long. And again, not feeling right. I was out of it. And I vaguely remember my kids wanting to go eat breakfast at IHOP. I wasn't feeling well at all, but I reluctantly went. And a lot of you don't know this, but I am going through a separation. I have been for a while. My children's mother She drove us to IHOP, and we were eating there all together. It's the first time that we were together in a long time. And I remember my kids were so happy, and they didn't want the day to end. So they asked if we could go to Pittsburgh. Again, I'm not feeling good, but I was like, let's do it. Forgive me for getting emotional, folks. This is difficult to talk about. So after breakfast, by the way, I was smelling that smell during breakfast. My stomach was turning. I got in the car, and their mother drove us to Pittsburgh. We went to Mount Washington, the overlook, and we took a picture. And I remember while we were taking a picture, I tried looking normal, but I felt awful. I felt like I was going to pass out. And I told them, I said, guys, we got to go. And they were hungry. So we decided to stop at the waterfront in Pittsburgh to get some lunch. I was in the passenger side of our Traverse, and we get to the waterfront. We get to the place, and I ended up having a full grand mal seizure in the passenger side of the vehicle in front of my kids. My 15-year-old had to call 911, and they got there in about 8 minutes. They loaded me in the back of the ambulance, and they rushed me to Forbes Hospital in Pittsburgh. I remember waking up in the back of the ambulance, and they were asking me questions, and I was slurring my words. I was confused. I could remember names, but I couldn't remember any dates. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know how old I was, but I remember my kids' names. I remember being at the hospital many days. I was there for 8 days, I think. They diagnosed me with encephalitis. That's inflammation of the brain tissue because of shingles. It went to my spinal fluid. It went to my brain. I was in rough shape. Immediately got me on antivirals. Immediately got me where I was starting to fight that virus, but I was in bad shape. While I was in the hospital, I was having little seizures. I guess they called them focal seizures or smaller seizures. And they sent me home. I couldn't be alone, but they put a PICC line in my arm, and it went to my heart directly. And that's how they administered the medication. I had nurses come to help out, and I even had my kids help me put the medication in my arm. And I did it myself many times. For 11 days, I did that. I fought for my life. The encephalitis started to go down. My memory took a hit, though. I was not doing good. I just remember kind of feeling like a zombie. And the kids got a laugh out of it because of they called me 7-Second Steve. Ever watch Adam Sandler in 50 First Dates? There's 10-Second Tom. Well, I was 7-Second Steve because I didn't know this, but my hippocampus was severely damaged, which is your memory maker. I just found all this out recently. Also, what was affected was the prefrontal cortex and the right temporal lobe of my brain, and severely damaged because of the infection and the inflammation. After the 11 days, they took the PICC line out of my arm, and since then I've had multiple EEGs, MRIs done. I have permanent scarring in my brain. I also have tissue loss. My hippocampus is severely damaged. Part of it is missing. The prefrontal cortex is damaged, probably permanently, and the right temporal lobe of my brain has that scar tissue on it that won't go away. I am past, I believe, the healing process. I think that's what I was told. I am now at the stage, hopefully, where I am now working on neuroplasticity. My brain hopefully is rewiring itself. That's what I'm hoping. Anyway, that's what I'm dealing with right now. And any thoughts, prayers, positive vibes that you guys can throw my way, I really would appreciate it. This has been very difficult for me, my kids, my family. I lost my license for 6 months. I can't dive for at least a year, if ever again. I have some big plans for my first dive coming up, hopefully within the next 6-7 months. Stay tuned for that. If all goes well, I will definitely be filming it, and you guys will see it. A lot of people will see it if it works well. But this has affected me with my clients. I work in the dive industry. I do web development, graphic design, 3D animation, a bunch of stuff for dive manufacturers, dive shops, instructors. And a lot of my clients had to go away because I just couldn't work. I tried. I'm still trying. Anyway, this has been tough. Financially, it's been tough. Mentally, emotionally, physically, this has been hard. The hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life. Comment below if you've been through this. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the last 6 months, wishing me well, letting me know that they're praying for me, thinking about me. I appreciate you guys. I have a long road ahead of me, I guess, of recovery, and I'm hoping I can get some relief. By the way, the medication that they had me on, it was called Keppra. It really messed with me bad. I wasn't in my right mind. I had incredible mood swings. I felt awful. I was just out of my mind. Manic. They have me on something else now. It seems like it's helping. I hope. But it also has neurological effects, psychological effects. I say emotional, maybe. Doctors, you can correct me on that. I just want to feel like myself, and I don't right now. My kids need their father back. My clients need their web developer back. I need diving back.
I'm struggling. I don't think people can understand unless you've been through this. To have something going on inside your brain that you can't control. To feel different. To be in a constant fog. Every day I wake up and it takes me a minute. I say a minute. It takes me a long time to remember what I did the day before. The seizure that I had really messed me up. And it wasn't necessarily the seizure, I think. I think it was the inflammation that caused the seizure. That's what the issue is. It's been rough, to say the least. Things that I love to do, I can't do. At least for right now, or ever. I've had my independence taken away at 41 years old. Not being able to drive. It's been rough. If you pray for me. I need it. I have a heart for people with mental illness. To feel like you can't control your mind. It's a horrible thing. And I never fully understood. I never fully had a heart for people that struggled with mental illness. Until I'm going through this now. Because I'm living it. The scar tissue in my brain is definitely causing issues. And I just need to get healthy. Make good choices. And try to get myself back to some form of normal. All right. Happy Monday.
I was able to pick up the guitar and start playing again. It took me a little bit to get back. It seems like it's helping. I've been trying to stay positive. It's been difficult. If you pray, I appreciate your prayers. All right, folks, listen, you dive safe, and eventually, I hope I'll see you in the water. By the way, if you like this channel, please consider, liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell for future notifications. If you enjoyed this video or my other videos in the past, please check out some of these other ones right here. They might interest you. All right, bye, guys.